Hey there. In the last video, I pointed out that time may be running out for the European Union. In the context of a strong, stable EU, the issue of Catalan independence is a very serious one that requires careful consideration and a confident cost-benefit analysis. In the context of a fading EU, it becomes downright frightening. Let me explain. The survival and vigor of Catalan independence is often explained by the fact that the Catalans have Barcelona. There are plenty of European nationalities that didn't have a vibrant, world-class city that are barely memories today. There is something to that. But there is also something about the history of Spain itself that makes powerful independence movements more likely. The confident, modern, democratic Spain we know today has never really existed outside of the context of the European Union and its predecessor, the European Economic Community. Spain has one of the grandest histories imaginable. At one point, it ruled an empire stretching across the planet, but that empire was more medieval than modern. Spain at its height was about loyalty to a monarch rather than a shared idea of nationalism. The rules governing each region were not uniform, and the Catalan region had its own evolving set of governing institutions that would sometimes work with the king and sometimes against him. We don't generally talk about the extent to which nationalist superstates like France, Germany, and the United Kingdom were created forcibly in the 1900s. In many cases, this involved that active crushing of smaller languages and cultures that didn't have a literate elite or a city like Barcelona to protect them. This forging of these united nationalisms required levels of industrialization and literacy and centralized states that weren't really available before the 19th century. Spain couldn't use those tools because by the 19th century Spain was a mess. The titan with the planet-spanning empire of the 1500s and 1600s was long gone. It opened the 1800s occupied by France. After they kicked out Napoleon, they spent another decade or so losing all their mainland American colonies at great expense. Needless to say, none of this covered the central government in Madrid with glory. It continued to exist, of course, and had some good decades here and there, but it also fought a series of civil wars between 1833 and 1876. These wars were about systems of government, but they were also about the rights and privileges of Catalonia and other regions as well. So Spain got the industrialization and literacy boost, in the cities at least, but it never really got that centralization. Some people did gravitate towards an overarching ideal of Spanish nationalism, similar to contemporary ideas of Frenchness or Britishness. Some people gravitated towards more local or regional nationalisms, and some people gravitated towards both. This 19th century confusion led to a lot of 20th century horror. The Spanish Civil War, a prelude to World War II, involved regional aspirations as well. Franco, the fascist dictator that won that civil war, crushed those regional aspirations for 40 years. When democracy finally returned to Spain in the late 1970s, it was always going to include some sort of recognition for Spain's different regional nationalities. One of the strands behind the Spanish drive for democracy was the potential of membership in the European Economic Community, which Spain did achieve in 1986. I think it is fair to claim that the prospect of a customs union with Europe made the Catalan leaders of the time less likely to agitate for full independence. Catalonia is one of the richest regions in Spain, and the prospect of free trade across that border must have been very attractive. Spain granted a high degree of autonomy to Catalonia in 1979, which was expanded in 2006. These statutes are the reason Catalonia legally has a parliament and a president, whose name I am not even going to attempt to pronounce. During the 1990s and the early 2010s, developments like this were a fascinating topic. The EU was bringing greater uniformity, but also seemed to allow for greater autonomy for regions like Scotland and Catalonia. The fact that this autonomy was attained in a peaceful, orderly fashion is essentially historically unprecedented, and that was a benefit provided by the European Economic Community and later the European Union. On the flip side, of course, we probably wouldn't be seeing the problems that we're now seeing in Catalonia if it weren't for the past 10 years of EU failure. The unified currency made recovery from the financial crisis more difficult. Spain was one of the hardest hit countries, with a 9% drop in GDP and a recession that lasted a full 5 years. Things finally began to turn around, but by this point, some parties in the Catalonian parliament were fed up. As one of the richer regions, they were sick of supporting the central government and not getting much in return. So they decided to have a referendum on independence in October of 2017. The Spanish government did not like that, tried to block the referendum legally and physically, and dissolved Catalonia's government after their parliament declared independence on October 27, 2017. Now, it's important to emphasize that it is not completely clear just how much support there is for independence in Catalonia itself. Yes, the results of the referendum were for independence, and the old parliament did vote for it, but it's not clear how representative the electorate that voted for that referendum was, and the majority that voted for independence in the parliament was very, very slim. The results of the elections for the new Catalan parliament, elected in December, were similarly ambiguous. The largest single party elected was against independence. But the pro-independence parties altogether control more seats in the new parliament. But the vote that elected that pro-independence majority is well under a majority of the voters. It's going to remain a big mess for the months and the years to come. Up until now, things have remained remarkably peaceful. Catalonia's small tradition of pro-independence terrorism has not restarted. The consensus is that the central government of Spain overreacted and used too much violence to respond to the referendum last fall. I believe that to be true, but I also believe that the Spanish government is moderating its response to Catalonia in order to avoid EU condemnation. So far, nobody has been killed. But how long is that going to last? The EU has been a calming factor throughout this dispute. On the one hand, they are willing to provide refuge for Catalonia's fugitive president in Brussels. But on the other hand, they've made it very clear that an independent Catalonia would not be welcomed in the EU. EU failure definitely contributed to this issue, but it's an EU success that this conflict has not yet spiraled into violence. It may seem alarmist to talk about fighting in Catalonia, but it's only EU influence that makes the idea of violence related to autonomy issues seem strange. Take a look at Iraq, or Turkey, or the Balkans, or Burma, or even Spain itself less than a century ago. If the EU fades, Europe will lose its immunity to its own history, in Catalonia and everywhere else. It's already kind of starting to happen. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. And special thanks to the producer and patrons that made this video possible. Additional thanks to Travis and Hughes, two patrons who convinced me to take a look at the issue of Europe again and take a look at the issue of Catalan independence. It's been a lot of fun. If you'd like to help me make more videos like this one, please click on the Patreon link here to find out more about how to do that. Thanks.